to have public participation. Because every time that bill has come, they just let it expire. They let it expire. We are again pushing to have it retabled. So that, for me, is one thing that we need to carry at the back of our minds.
Yes.
That the country is resistant. The other thing, I was looking at media this morning, I think Switzerland. Mm-hmm. I think there's some threshold, certain bills are put to a referendum.
Yes.
And the referendums are digital. You go digital and the costs are not there, whatever. So they just voted on some bill and they came out at, I think, 50. The bill sailed through at 50, 40 something. So when I look at the public participation structure in our constitution, it's like something similar whereby a decision can be made by the public on a motion of national importance and say this is a go area or this is a no-go area. So we may need to to think that way, but we need to go digital. Otherwise they'll hammer us down with say it's too expensive, the democracy is unaffordable, so let us go the dictatorship way, and that's all I wanted to comment.
Asante for that, Mheshimiwa. Do you agree with what Esther brought up? And you can even bring up your question as you were following the conversation. Esther saying that the new generation is tired of the bogus leadership and politicians and will be behind transformative leaders like Okiya Omtatah.
Right. Thank you, Mark. My name is Kimani. I also work at CSA Place. And I think I agree to a great extent with what Esther is saying. We have a generation of young people who, although we are told that young people are so disinterested in politics, that young people don't care what happens, but I think what we need to do as a country is to a paradigm shift and include young people in decisions that matter. And how do we do that? Like what Okiya Omtatah is saying, noting that the generation is really digital. We need to provide for access to information, especially to young people, and tailor it specifically to ways that address them. For example, access to information should not just be made, for example, in billboards where people, for example, young people don't see. We need to do a strategic framework and see how will this information get to young people. Is it, for example, through social media, where we have short videos, for example, being posted on TikTok, that teach a lot of young people that this is what the finance bill is all about. These are the proposals that the government is going to implement. This is how they are going to affect you directly in a way that is fun, while at the same time, in a way that is very educative to young people. And young people, on the other hand, in agreement with what Esther is saying, we have a lot of young people coming up to in terms of an appointive positions. Young people how do you do that specifically to judicial does the executive policies, it doesn't maintenance, dynamics of it all, so that they don't work in isolation, but at the same time we don't have encroachment into what government do. Yeah.
So much on the qualitative, how many people, but for the qualitative process that is undertaken in public participation, so that even if you have a few people speaking on a particular subject, but there is quality in that, it is much better than having numbers. And then this is really a challenge to like civil society organizations, for young people, or for women, to organize themselves into so many caucuses so that then people are able to respond. For professional organizations to be able to also bring their expertise on board, so that when there are discussions in law around specific areas where certain professionals have expertise in, that should be done. And I think if you look at perhaps like the presentations which were done finance at TVC, they were top heavy with so many professional organizations representing various interests. But I mean, that is still food for thought as we develop the practice around public participation. Now, when it comes to the question of separation of powers, this is one which requires each institution to understand its constitutional remit, the power it has under the Constitution, and to jealously then guard its independence in regards to the functions and the responsibilities that it has been allocated under the Constitution. But to also realize that there's a trinity between the executive, the judiciary, and the legislator for purposes of getting coordination and working together, so that you have you know, the way we say that like the Constitution, you read the Constitution, creating harmony, that one provision of the Constitution cannot eat into another provision of the Constitution, creating this harmony. That is how a proper functioning of the system works.
Yeah.
Getting that balance is not very easy, but it requires that each institution jealously guards its mandate, and that each institution respects the mandate of the other. What we have witnessed, for example, previously is an attempt by the judiciary, by the executive, to invade into the judiciary. Whereas we, with the regime of President William Ruto, you actually thought that that was going to come to an end, there is still that subtle interference with the mandate of the judiciary. And how does that come in? Through allocation of funds. If you look at how funds are allocated, the judiciary still yet to get above the 30 billion mark in terms of allocation, whereas the other institutions, the other arms of government, are making so much more money. When you want sometimes to undermine an institutional organ, all you need to do is to ensure that it does not have a fair allocation of resources. So I think, and I think that's the question that we're having here also, in terms of whether Parliament is dead on arrival. And of course, some are saying it never even left. But really, if you have a Parliament that then understands its constitutional mandate, the first thing would be to say that having gone to the people and having listened to their views,
and recognizing the supremacy of the people and that the supremacy of the people overrides the wishes of the executive, we are going to do the right thing. What is the right thing? To amend or review the proposals that have been contained in the finances to reflect the wishes of the people who are the supreme individuals as per the Constitution. So when a parliament then behaves that way, it has properly understood its constitutional remit, but of course it will be able to tell the executive that even as we do this, we understand we are interdependent, and so if we are unable to generate enough revenue, we are also going to affect the operations of parliament. So we have to try and see how we work around these proposals that are coming in to ensure that, one, we pay true homage to the people and their views, but also secondly, we ensure that this aspect of our interdependence is not compromised by us perhaps taking on extremely drastic propositions to amend the finance bill in a manner that affects the ability of the government to generate revenue. So that's where you find the balance.
All right. I don't know if you're content with that question. Yeah, and so I'd want to bring us to the concluding part of this conversation because time is fast spent. We're almost in 2 hours, and I believe the sound issue has been sorted at this time. Yes, this was raised by Jim Kamote and Esther Nyonje. I believe you can hear us now because I want us to hear how we will bring or resuscitate, let's say resuscitate Parliament back to life as we conclude. And I'll start with you, Okiya Omtatah, and then I'll go to you, Nerima, I'll go to you, Njeri. And as LSK, is it all gone? If, for instance, it passes the third reading tomorrow, the committee stage, and this is actually pushed forward and they have their way, is all hope lost? Because there is consensus that people are against the Finance Bill 2023, going by what has been submitted in the public participation. But what do we do to bring back Parliament to life, dead on arrival?
I think for me is to take a serious look at political parties. To me, that's where the rain began beating us. And we can fix these political parties and move them away from being personality cults to institutions. For me, we have cracked the problem. But so far they are today, they are personality cults. And with that, the House or the legislature cannot be independent, be it from the opposition, be it from the ruling side, because they are all like puppets. The puppeteers are out of the house. So the puppets are in the house. So we need to get a way of dealing with that. So, and the puppets, they are puppeteers because they are the personalities, and these are the cult followers. You see, so if we can get a way whereby you can remove personalities, and you can even look at the American situation. When Trump was able to pull the Republican Party into a cult, look at how he was able to. It's just that the institutions of the state of America are very strong. Otherwise, he would have taken power the way Marcos did in the Philippines and would be ruling to perpetuate, you see. So that cultism that is in our political arena needs to be dealt with. And then the other thing, I think that for me, the presidency needs to be devolved, like other institutions have been devolved, so that we vote, if it is LAMO, small as it is, to know that we control this percentage of the presidency. So we get some form of college, election of the president through a college system.
Not populist.
Not one man, one vote. But that one is open to ethnic mobilization as the basis.
Okay.
So you come Masai, you have got all the ideas, you have the Obama of Kenya, but then you come from the Limolo, the first thing they'll ask you, Muko wangapi kwenu?
Yes.
Another question people have been asked, is now late, used to be a very good scientist in Naivasha. Came up with a very good project, and they did some research on some animals, and it's a very good productivity in the dry conditions, wrote a paper, got World Bank funding for the project to go. The day the 3 billion shillings hit the account, he was transferred to headquarters to do administrative duties. So he tried to complain, he was asked, So we had to engage in a lot of fighting until we had demos in Naivasha. That's when the guy went back to run the project.
Right.
But then they spoiled it because we had, this was a cattle, he was doing research on cattle. This is an area that had been quarantined from 1902. They decided to bring Maasai cows to come and pollute it, so the project now went with the guy. Yeah. The guy got so frustrated, he's now dead. You see. Wow. So, we need to break that ethnic hold on the country through design.